All right. Good evening, my friends. Hope everyone is doing well on this Tuesday evening. I show that it is 6 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get rolling here. I imagine we'll have a couple more folks hopping on over here in the waiting room here momentarily. All right. Well, I'm going to start how I normally do by sharing our calendar. I know for homework last time, you were digging into the Rogerian method of argumentation. And so that is where we will pick up today and begin some discussing about what Rogerian argument looks like, what examples of Rogerian argument you were able to pick out in the reading. And then today we will transition into the Toulmin model of argumentation, which is probably the most common, the one that most people are exposed to the most in their schooling experience. So, all right, I think I stalled long enough. We've got a couple more people coming in the waiting room. So I will go ahead and share my screen so we can talk through the calendar here. And then we'll be rolling. Okay, I got to move some stuff out of my way here so I can do some moving around. Okay, so today, the final day of September, September 30th. So like I said, we will start class tonight by discussing the Rogerian argumentation that you dug into for homework. So if you go back up here, the homework was to watch a couple videos that were explaining it, and then to read this article and try to pick out examples of Rogerian argument that you found in that text. Talk about if you think the Rogerian argument improves or decreases the effectiveness, and then what could be done to make that article more effective in general. So we'll get into that here in just a second. Then, like I said, we will intro the Toulmin model of argumentation with a little bit of reading and a video. Then have a little reading for us to do where we will try to pick out all the examples of the Toulmin model of argumentation. Then we will intro the next reader response or the essay. I do have a sample to share with you. I was really digging like the last 30 minutes trying to find a different sample, but I couldn't find the one I was looking for. So this sample of a reader response is actually a little bit different assignment than what we're going to be working on, but does still have some argumentation strategies in it that I want to highlight. Then together we'll work on your outline for your reader response. And then for homework, you're going to be typing that reader response and checking in with the writing lab to get feedback before you submit. Okay, a couple of other things to note before we do jump in today, that today is week 6, so we only have 2 more weeks after tonight of our time together. And so we're getting close to the end here. So just kind of a reminder, if you are wanting to submit rewrites or make revisions to any of your essays that you have submitted to try to improve your score, please feel free to do that. The sooner the better. That way I can get you updated and that we don't have like a mad rush at the end of our time together. So just remember that's an option for you. You'll simply submit to the same spot where you submitted the original one with any revisions or changes that you have made. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into it here. I'm just going to share kind of like the screen here and kind of talk through this. So this particular article, first off, I want to point out it's dated. I was trying to reread it before we started class here, and I was like, oh, a lot of things have changed here with college athletes. But this article is from September 30th, 2019. And I think I told you this in the last class period. It is very difficult to find a text that is true Rogerian argument. And I would argue that's because in Western culture, we are very focused on trying to persuade and win arguments as opposed to trying to find that common ground. And so this was kind of as close as I could come to finding a Rogerian argument. It has elements of Rogerian. It's not all the way Rogerian, but we'll get into that here in just a second. But this particular article, How California Bill Will Impact College Sports and What Comes Next, told a little bit differently here. You'll notice it's got like some subheadings and things like that. And so what I would like to do first is to put you into some groups. I'm not going to give you a super long time, but inside of your groups, I do want you to take a little bit of time first to discuss what is Rogerian argument. What did you write down in your notes? Then I want you to talk a little bit about this particular article, right? Do you feel like this article was effective? Was it not effective? Where did you see Rogerian argument coming into play? And then how would you go about making this argument stronger if you had to do that? Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen and get you into some breakout rooms here. All right, and again, just talking about what is Rogerian argument. I can put this in the chat. What is Rogerian argument? And what elements of Rogerian argument are in this text. Okay, I'm not going to give you a super long time here, but I definitely want to give you a little time to share out what you learned about Rogerian argument. Okay, your breakout rooms should be opening now. If you would kindly go ahead and join your breakout room. There we go. Okay, John, are you able to join the breakout room? There we go.
Basically, like an argument that like you're trying to get like an agreement rather than you're trying to like win an argument. So you're trying to like find like common ground.
Yeah, that's
That makes sense. Um,
Rogerian argument.
Yeah.
Hello.
And the other side and finding common grounds and looking for a solution that works for both sides.
All right, we just about have everybody back, and we had a couple more people join us there in the waiting room. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so for those of you just joining, we just did a very short breakout room to discuss what is Rogerian argument and what methods of Rogerian argument you found within the text that you read for homework. And so now is when I need a couple people to be brave. First, let's start with some basic like notes or discussion about what is Rogerian argument. So somebody be brave and share with us what is Rogerian argument, what are elements, what can we look for, and then we'll move to the actual article itself for what you found within it. So let's start with just some basic, sorry, my watch is bothering me. So let's start with just some basic background information. What is Rogerian argument and what can we look for to find it?
Rogerian argument is more of, geez, 1 second, sorry. It got off my screen for a second. Common ground, finding common ground, and my notes disappeared. 1 second. Sorry. A focus is on finding ground and reaching mutual understanding instead of trying to win or trying to completely take over the point.
Very good, very good. And somebody help me. Did I assign the Obama speech as part of the homework last time?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, I'll say there's an Obama speech if you just Google it where they do it like a Rogerian analysis of one of his speeches, and it's I don't know, like they highlight the wording as they're going of like where he's using Rogerian argument. And it's just a fascinating, I'll try to find it in one of our breaks and I'll try to share it, but it's just an interesting analysis of like word choice, right? And the whole idea of trying to bring people together by using us or we or our, like our common mission, right? Trying to bring people together instead of trying to put them on opposite ends. And so there's a lot of speeches out there that are like that. Martin Luther King Jr. another has other, like if you just go to like Google and type in Rogerian analysis, and there's a lot of speeches that you'll find where they're trying to establish some common ground with the audience and bring people together as opposed to trying to win an argument. And so it does look very different. And I do think it's more common probably in public speaking, like I said, when we're trying to unite a group as opposed to winning an argument. But there are some writers that do use Rogerian argument. I always kind of laugh because anytime I put something out for people to try to analyze, because I think it's somewhat Rogerian, a lot of times they'll be like, Humphreys, what even is the argument here? Like, I can't even tell if they're trying to argue anything. And so sometimes in written arguments, sometimes it falls a little flat for Western readers, right? Because I don't think it's super common for us to see something that's not trying to persuade us heavily one way or the other, right? We're bombarded with persuasive techniques and argument, on all of our different medias or medias. And so it's kind of interesting to think about, but great job defining Rogerian argument. Okay, now let's move into the text that you read. I'm curious, and I hope I gave you enough time in your groups. What elements of Rogerian argument did you see within that particular text?
I'll go. I felt like I don't it was kind of confusing for me, but I'm just gonna do my best. It was talking about a bill that is in favor of collegiate athletes, and instead, I think the author was trying to argue that with any special interest in college or any higher education, there should be like an equal opportunity for success in that sense. So I feel like they were agreeing with collegiate athletes, but also proposing that other people who are very successful in their field of whatever they're doing in school should also be taken care of in the same way that athletes are.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Anybody else have anything to add? I'm going to actually pull that text up while we're talking here, but anybody have anything to add about Rogerian argument in this particular article right here on our screen? Okay, I'm going to just talk through some. I'm not going to talk through the whole thing, but through some of it here. So very common in Rogerian argument is to establish some like background knowledge, right? Some things that both sides would agree on. And so I feel like that's what they were trying to do here at the beginning, trying to establish like, well, here are the facts that both sides, whether you're for or against, right, could agree on, right? So it talks about just background information. What does the bill do? Okay, well, here's what it does. And here's why it matters. Then we kind of get like it's almost like straight reporting, okay? And then what happens now? What about schools in other states? And so for the most part, it's presenting information, but like if you had to go in and you're like, okay, well, what exactly is it arguing? a lot of times you'd be like, well, I don't really know. Like, it doesn't seem like the argument is super clear or it's not hammered home. You know, and then like up here where it says prompting cheers from activists and consternation from the NCAA. So it's presenting both sides of the argument. Some people are for it, some people are against it. And so what it tries to do, now whether it achieves this, I don't know, but right, what it tries to do is just present the information and let you as the reader kind of decide which side you want to be on. I don't know, a weakness I think to this particular article is that it is hard to tell, you know, like it just seems factual. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily trying to promote an argument. And I don't know that it's really trying to bring people together, but maybe it is trying to bring people together by saying, okay, here are the two sides, right? Here's the common information that we know, and just explaining it. I don't know, if you had to rewrite this article, what might you do differently? Somebody be brave.
I'll go.
Okay, go right ahead.
What I would do differently is maybe add some more things about how it actually affect the athletes. Would they have to give the school a portion of the money that they make from these new, ventures? What would happen? How would they have to compensate the school for, because they're playing for the school? So would the school be compensated if they did make extra money? Like, I would add something in there about that. I'm sure people would be concerned about it.
Very good. I love that. Anybody else? What would you do differently or add or take away? I don't know. I really like the middle part. Like, I just keep going back to it. I like how it goes into, and it's like, here's a look at what the bill aims to accomplish, and it gives us the background on the bill. I just wish at the end that it would have done something a little bit different. I don't know. I don't like how it ended with what about schools in other states? Like, I wish they would have brought it full circle and come back to, some sort of like, okay, well, here's both sides. I don't know. I didn't care for the ending. And I think they could have ended it truly using Rogerian method if they would have ended it with another paragraph about like, though two sides to this issue exist, we have to come together to support college students, or we have to come together to show support for college athletes. I don't know, something along those lines to bring both of those sides together a little bit more in the end. I think would have brought that Rogerian argument a little more full circle, but as is, I kind of laugh. It's like one of the only ones I could find of like Rogerian argument, like in real life, right, that exists as far as a published article goes. You can obviously Google like Rogerian argument, and it's going to give you some that people have written that have not been published, like for like academic reasons. But yeah, speeches are a lot more common to find Rogerian argumentation as opposed to written articles like in magazines or things like that. But great job with that. Like I said, I'm going to try to find that one speech and put it in there because it like highlights as it's going, and it highlights all of the wording that it considers Rogerian argument, like in a color as he's like reading the speech. And so it's like anytime he says us or our or we or common goal, like it highlights it as the Rogerian method. It's kind of a cool little analysis. So I'll try to find that when we break here in a little bit. All right, well, good job with Rogerian argument. I think Rogerian argument is one that gets skipped over quite a bit. Again, because I feel like in Western culture, we're trying to win an argument, right? We're constantly trying to persuade or win, make people adopt certain beliefs or take certain actions, okay? What I want to do next then, I want to intro our third and final method of argumentation, which is the Toulmin model of argumentation. Toulmin model, again, probably the most common that we use. It is what we teach in most of our English classes. My gosh, like grades 3 through 12. Also, if any of you've ever taken a debate class or anything like that, this is the model that you most likely used. in your debate class, okay? So here's what I'm gonna have you do. I'm gonna give you some time here. I'm gonna have you read the aims of argument, little chapter here. So it's textbook reading. It is not super, it's not a super fun read, but it definitely has great information for you. And so I want you to jot down some notes as you're reading. And then when you get to, let me scroll through it here. Okay, and I want you to try to answer these questions when you get to the part on finding warrants. Warrants can be a little bit tricky. It's okay, give it your best shot. And then I want you to finish the reading. I'm gonna keep scrolling here. Right here, you're gonna stop where it says the legalization of drugs. Okay, so I want you to stop right there. Then I don't know what I clicked there. I do want you to watch this video on the Toulmin model of argumentation before we come back together. So I want to make sure I give you enough time to read the chapter reading and to watch the video. Neither one are super long. So let me see. I don't even know what time it is. I'm covering it up here. Let's meet back at 7, ready to talk about the Toulmin model of argumentation. Let me get some links for you here. Put these in the chat. Maybe. I am striking out all the way around here. Let me stop sharing and try to put it in the chat that way. There we go. Okay, so here's the reading. And watch a video on calendar. Meet back at 7. And I'll also try to find that Rogerian video that I was talking about. Okay, so I want you to read the article, watch the video on the calendar. I'll try to get that link and put it here too. And then let's meet back at 7 o'clock to talk about the Toulmin model of argumentation. Okay. All right, my friends, if you could start making your way back. Hoping I was able to give you plenty of time there to read the chapter on the Toulmin model of argumentation and give you a little time to watch that video. And as you are reading, I'm just going to kind of draw your attention. I hope that you took a little time to answer the questions on warrants on this page right here. If you didn't answer those, hopefully we can do that together and it'll make sense here. But just kind of an overview, the Toulmin model of argumentation, like I said earlier, the most common method of argumentation in that it's what we teach in almost all of our English courses, grades, middle school all the way up. Sometimes though, you may not have heard the same terminology, like warrant might be a new word, backing might be a new word. But I promise in some way, shape, or form, your teachers have hammered the skills of the Toulmin model of argumentation. And I know specifically our debate program does utilize the Toulmin model of argumentation as well. And so it starts off with just a little background about Stephen Toulmin, claim, reasons, and evidence. Evidence is also called data. So we're talking about numbers there, but doesn't always have to be. Then we start out and we go into your basic claim with reasoning and then evidence to support that particular reasoning. And they give you several examples. I love that. I think those are super beneficial. Then they go into this idea of the warrant. And the warrant sometimes I think can be a struggle for some students, but try not to overthink it, okay? If we're talking about a warrant here, we're talking about just in general, like the thought behind the actual process. So, for example, if you don't believe the warrant, then you're not going to believe anything about this particular argument. And so I put here, looks for, unstated assumptions. And then it says, for example, if you accept the argument that grades should be abolished because focusing on a grade reduces students' quality of thinking while studying, you probably accept the warrant, right? Or a belief that critical thinking and not just grabbing facts is important to education. So warrant is like that underlying belief behind the entire premise of the argument. And so the next page does give us an opportunity to practice warrants. And so here's where I'm going to need you to be vulnerable, be brave, and let's kind of talk through it. So it says, uncover the assumptions underlying the following arguments about grading. Then in each case, discuss whether you accept the truth of the warrant or not. Okay, so let's read the claim first. In an ideal world, grading would not be necessary. But in schools today, grading is a necessary practice if students are to learn. Okay, that's their claim that they want to argue, right? That grading is necessary practice if students are to learn. Okay, the reasoning is without grades to motivate them, most students today would not work hard enough to learn what they have to learn. Okay, what are the underlying assumptions? And there are several different things you could say here, but what are some of the underlying assumptions or warrants with this particular claim and reasoning?
One of the warrants could be students need external rewards to be motivated.
Yes, love it. Very good. Excellent. Anybody have a different warrant?
Mine's would be kids don't work hard or put in effort without seeing the grades. I think
Yeah, is that motivating factor? Good. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Any other assumptions behind this claim and reasoning? Yeah, if you don't believe that all students, are motivated by grades, then chances are you're not going to believe any of this, right? And so, but yeah, both of the claims that you brought up, I love it. Very good. Let's look at the second one. The claim, students will learn better if we eliminate the practice of grading. All right, now we're getting rid of it altogether. It says reason, grading encourages competition rather than cooperation in the classroom. Interesting reasoning for that, I think. Okay, what is the warrant here?
That cooperation improves learning more than competition.
Yes, good. Excellent. Right, good. Anything else? I love how you said that, because there are definitely some students out there that thrive on the competition with grades. I wasn't necessarily one of those, but there are some students that prefer the competition over the cooperation. So good. Let's look at the third one. Grades in high school are necessary preparation for college. The reason students will be graded in college, so they have to learn how to work for grades and be competitive. Well, we're just all over the place here. What did you put for the warrant on this one? There was a lot of warrants for this one, I think.
Early exposure to grading helps students succeed later.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't believe that, right? Like, good. Right. What it takes to prepare students for college, a lot of assumptions there. Good. All right. I'm going to keep going. Okay. Warrants. Sometimes warrants are stated, sometimes they're implied, and we have to kind of work through them. What I like, though, or I like a lot of things about the Toolman model, I'm not going to lie to you, but I do like the qualifier, right? And it gives you an example down here of a qualifier. So a qualifier simply acknowledges that the claim may not be true in all circumstances. And so it does give you a little bit more room for some outliers that might exist. And so here they've given us a claim with a qualifier. Can't scroll down. That says, although instructors should distinguish between passing and failing work, letter or numerical grades should be abolished. Okay. Even simple qualifiers such as in most cases or on the whole can diffuse objections to a claim, right? By acknowledging that, sorry, my cell phone was going off. By acknowledging that there are other outliers, again, we are not giving people as much room to argue against us. Okay. So that's why qualifiers can be important. But then, and I know that you've heard this part, right? When we bring up the other side, right? Typically in high quality argument, the other side is at least acknowledged, right? Where we've given some representation of their thoughts, the statistics on the other side, and then we refute or we create a rebuttal to that particular information. Rebuttals, a rebuttal is a statement that shows that the writer has anticipated counter arguments and diffused them by showing their flaws. Okay, so the Toolman model, much different than the Rogerian model, right? Rogerian, you're trying to get to that shared common understanding. Here, you're like, okay, here's your side of the argument, and here's where you're wrong, right? Like we're definitely trying to win or persuade them to our particular side. And so there you'll see like a counter argument, and then you're going to see a rebuttal or a refutation of that particular side of the argument, right? And so like when you're talking about debate, right? If you've ever been in a debate class, right? You're presenting the case or you're presenting the argument, you're presenting all of their main reasoning, their facts, their statistics, and then you are offering a rebuttal against all of their stuff, right? Where you're saying, well, here's where your thinking is flawed, or here's where your research is missing in order to win, right? Like if you're trying to win a debate or something like that, you're trying to point out flaws in the other team or the other side's argument. Excellent. Very good. All right. Okay. And I hope you had a little time to watch that video. I think that video does a little better job, perhaps, maybe even in the chapter of explaining the different steps. Okay. Whew. Sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot and I'm really not. My throat's just struggling. Okay. The next thing I want to do here, I want to have you read the Economic Guide to Picking a College Major. And hopefully this doesn't send anybody in a tailspin. It definitely shouldn't. We're just looking at argument. Okay. I'm not making any claims about your college major. You major in what you want. Okay. But with this one, I want you to try to pick out the Toolman model, right? So I want you to try to find all the elements of the Toolman model within this particular text. So think about claim, reasonings, warrants, backing, all of the main elements that we just talked about. I want you to read this article and see if you can pick out, see, I'm choking, see if you can pick out all the examples or an example of each of the items of the Toolman model that we just talked about, okay? I'm not gonna give you a whole lot of time to do this, but I do need to give you enough to try to identify all the elements. So let's meet back here at, can we do 7:30? I know that's probably rushing it. Is that too soon? Let's try 7:30. Okay, so let me put this link in the chat. And I'm going to give you time to read it, looking for the Toolman model of argumentation. And then we're going to meet back at 7:30. Okay. Okay, there you go. Okay, so I put the link in the chat. You're going to read the document, identify all the methods of tool, or identify all of the methods of Toolman used in that particular piece. And then let's meet back at 7:30. Okay. All right, my friends, if you could start making your way back. I feel like if I don't know, I feel like the first time I gave you too much reading time. This time I may not have given you enough. I was reading as well, but I'm hoping you had a little bit of time to identify as many of the Toolman credentials in that particular text as you possibly could. What I'd like to do next, just in some small groups, just want to give you an opportunity to kind of share out what were you thinking was the claim, right? Or what's the central argument? What reasoning is used to support the claim? And then, are there any qualifiers, backing, warrants, rebuttals, all of those things? And so I'm going to give you a chance first to share out in small groups, kind of test the waters a little bit, see how confident you're feeling in identifying each of the elements of the Toolman model of argumentation. Then we'll share out large group. Okay, so give me a second here. Let me get our breakout rooms pulled back up. I still have them open. Perfect. So just have to click a button. Okay, you should be getting an invite now to join your breakout room and discuss the article along with all the methods that you found as far as Toolman's methods go. Okay. Let me clear on my glasses. Okay, I've got two folks. It looks like they're unassigned, so let me assign here and here. Okay, now I should have everybody in a group. Okay, here we go. All right, looks like we're still waiting on a couple groups here. Hopefully I didn't cut you too short. I tried to get around to each room. I know I didn't, but some groups were finishing up and were waiting on me. So hopefully I didn't cut everybody too short. Looks like we got 2 groups still going. All right, now we've got everybody popping back in. Again, I apologize if I cut you a little bit short there. I had a couple groups waiting on me and I hadn't even had a chance to get around to all the groups. So, okay, here's where I'm gonna need you to be vulnerable and be brave and do some sharing. Anybody willing to tell us what you or your group found as far as Toolman's model in this particular article? We can start easy if you want, dip our toes in. What did you put for the claim? Then any reasoning. Actually, let me pull up the article so that I have it in the, so we can reference specific lines and things here. I'm not sure why that's up. I have my email pulled up there. That's not it either. Maybe I'll find it. Hold on, I keep clicking here. I'm trying to find. Okay, here it is, the Economic Guide to Picking a College Major. So I don't know, we can start wherever. If you want to start with claim or if you want to start with other things, that's fine. Anybody brave enough to lead us off here?
I think I have a claim. I did the millions of American college students are heading back to campus and face the grim reality. A college degree is no guarantee to economic success.
Very good. I would also include that next sentence too, that part of the argument is that through their choice of major, they can take at least some steps towards boosting their odds. Excellent. And this article is a little bit different, right? They just put the claim right up front, right there at the very beginning, and then everything else is going to come back to that particular claim. And I can't see who said that, but excellent work. Okay, let's talk about next reasoning. Or we can go into backing, we can go into warrants, we can go into rebuttals. Somebody be brave. Give us some more here.
A rebuttal that I saw was when they mentioned, sorry, I'm trying to find it. Oh, they mentioned construction and manufacturing jobs, which are jobs that don't require a college degree and they pay well. And that's a rebuttal that, you know, if people were to be like, well, you need a college degree to get a well-paying job. A lot of people say that. So.
Excellent. Very good. Yes, definitely giving the other side. Perfect. Okay, somebody keep going. Very good.
I felt like another rebuttal was in the following paragraph. It says, by that narrower definition, students majoring in cosmetology services and culinary arts are the most underemployed, with more than a third working in low-wage service jobs. And the rest of that paragraph as well is kind of a rebuttal, in my opinion.
Yes, agreed. Very good. Very good. Okay, keep going. Good.
I'm also having a hard time distinguishing qualifiers versus warrants, like the difference between those two.
Okay, I'm going to give you an easy tip. Are you ready?
Yes.
A qualifier is just going to be like 1 or 2 words, typically. Whereas
Okay.
a warrant is going to be like sometimes a much longer, well, sometimes it's longer. Sometimes the warrant's completely implied, right? So like if I were reading this claim up here, that a college degree is no guarantee of economic success, but through their choice of major, they can at least take some steps towards boosting their odds. Well, like an unstated warrant here is that people go to college just to make money, right? Whereas there are definitely people who go to college because they just like school, which I think is hard for some people to believe. But like, there's a whole underlying assumption here that the people that are writing this article believe that college equals money, right? Or that the whole point of a college degree is to earn more money. Whereas, you know, there are probably folks out there that, you know, first off, don't have a college degree and make more money than, say, me, right? But that definitely exists in the teaching profession. But there are also people, like I said, that go to college just to learn, right? Like they just want to go and take a whole bunch of classes and don't care how much money they make. You know, they end up choosing a job that they know they're not going to make a lot of money in, but a job that perhaps they are going to be happy with. But a qualifier, though, let me see if I can find one. Well, like here, this could be considered, it's actually more than one word, but right. A qualifier could be like the word average, right? Because by saying here, the keyword is average. So they're not arguing one way or the other. They're not saying, yes, you should go to college, you're going to earn more. They're saying on average, right? That's the qualifier to make it a little bit smaller. Because if we just said, going to college, you're going to earn more money than anyone else, right? We all know that's not true, right? That there are certain jobs that right out of high school you could go get and make more money than some college graduates. And so by making the scope smaller, adding the word average, it's going to make that argument less likely to be argued against. Okay, did what I say make any sense at all just there?
Yes, that made a lot more sense. Thank you
Okay.
for clarifying.
Okay. I was like, I'm just talking. I don't know if I'm making any sense. Very good. Anything else? I don't know if any of you are going into petroleum engineering, but I'm just saying. Go ahead. I was trying to find the part.
Okay, so just so I know I understand, like hold on, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 6. In the 7th paragraph, it says the typical recent college graduate. Is that what you're getting at as well? By when you use the example of on average, would that be kind of like similar to that?
So the word typical there would be a qualifier.
Okay. Yeah,
Excellent.
that makes a lot more sense now. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, very good. Very good. I do feel like they have some good reasoning or some good evidence throughout. They have a lot of numbers, right? With like percentages. They have dollar signs, right? With amounts of money earned. And we could label all of that as reasoning or backing or evidence. All of those words used kind of interchangeably. I'm trying to see I feel like I'm missing something big, and somebody help me. Did we skip one of the methods? Maybe we got it wrong. Okay. Well, if you think of anything else, let me know if I forgot anything there. Okay. All right. So now we have taken a look at all three methods. I don't know why I stopped sharing my screen. Sorry about that. We've taken a look now at the three main models of argumentation that we use with Aristotle, Rogers, and then Toulmin today. So now what I want to do is talk about our next writing assignment. Okay, coming up on the screen here. Okay, for our next writing assignment, you're going to be applying what you've learned about argumentation strategies to the particular text that you are reading. So what you're going to do is, it says at the top, you're going to select one of the following articles to analyze. I'll read the titles here. It says, when we ban books, we severely restrict children's ability to learn about different people and themselves. Or the next one, oh, dagger to the heart, meet the parents who won't let their children study literature. Kind of similar to that article we just read. Or the next one, the big debate, the problem with abolishing Greek life. I'm sure that you have probably heard a lot of discussion about Greek life and correlations to hazing, binge drinking, sexual assaults. So kind of an interesting take on that particular article. All right, so first thing you're going to do, you will choose one of these texts up here that you're going to analyze, okay? I did put here, you're going to read your particular article. And I did note you should stay as objective as possible when critiquing the essay, okay? Your view on the issue being discussed should be set aside so you can judge the text on its own merits, right? So even if you believe absolutely not, we should keep Greek life, you've got to kind of set that aside so that you can actually without any opinion creeping in, so that you can judge whether or not the argument is good or not. And how we're going to do that, we're going to do that first by identifying what is the writer's central argument, what are the essay's strengths and weaknesses, what choices is the writer making to convince others of the argument. Now we're going to get into this part. What elements of argumentation theory contribute to the essay's persuasiveness? So I want you to be thinking about, are you finding any ethos, pathos, logos? Are you finding the Toulmin's model, claim, support, warrant, backing, qualifier, rebuttal? Or Rogers, are you finding some representation of the opponent's arguments Are you finding some common ground, some compromise or unbiased language? And by unbiased language, I'm talking about like we, us, our common goal. Those things would be Rogers. Okay. Then how credible are the writers supporting reasons and research? I put here, it's always okay. I think a little healthy skepticism. If you read something and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's right, it's okay to open up another tab up at the top and do a little Google search. A little fact checking is what we call that. Okay. All right. A highly successful reader response will concisely and accurately summarize the article, right? That's the first part you got to do without including your opinion. Recognize and analyze significant writers' choices and their effects. You have to use concepts from Aristotle, Toulmin, and Rogers in your analysis of the writer's choices. Point out weaknesses of the essay's argument and evidence. Evaluate overall effectiveness, and then obviously MLA format for this particular document, okay? We're gonna try for 3 full pages, preferably no more than 4, and we'll submit here on Canvas just like we normally do. I do need to point out the scoring guide because it is a little bit different for this particular paper. The first part and the fourth part here are the same as all of our other scoring guides, right? Can you summarize the text without opinion, right? Give me a summary, just what it's about. Make sure you transition us through all of the main points of the article, and obviously grammar, word choice, sentence structure. But this part is where the majority, let me highlight it. This part's where the majority of your points are going to come from, right? And that's where you have to choose at least 2 of the methods of argumentation that we covered. And you have to tell me how you see those coming out in that particular article. So I'm going to be honest, Aristotle, I think a lot of people have been doing ethos, pathos, logos for a long time. So a lot of students choose to do that one because it's a little bit easier. And then the next one kind of depends on which article you choose, right? Is it more Rogerian, right, with that common ground, neutral, putting both sides out there? Or is it Toulmin, right, where I'm like, here's my claim, here's my reasons, here's the backing, here's the implied warrant, here's the rebuttal, right? Is it more like that? Okay, so now let me come back. And all right, so here's what I want to do first before I turn you loose for a second here. All right, I did put a sample of this paper, or a similar paper, I should say. It's not the exact paper, and I'm going to talk about why. But I'm going to give you a chance to do some reading of this sample because I want to talk about how it goes about analyzing the methods of argumentation. If I can get my thing to scroll down. Okay, so just like your paper, though, the first paragraph is the summary. Then it's going to go into the methods of argumentation. And so this particular paper, though, was where they were comparing 2 articles and they were trying to argue which article was more persuasive and why. So it's kind of a compare contrast, but I really want you to focus in on, as you can see here, right? Their thesis statement says methods of argumentation such as Aristotle, Rogerian, and Toulmin, but both arguments are weakened by the presence of logical fallacies, right? So then I know within the paper, they're going to go in and they're going to start analyzing each of these methods of argumentation. So what I'm going to do before you even choose a text to read, I'm going to put this sample in the chat, and I just want you to give it a read, and then let's come back and talk about it, because I think it's going to really help you kind of focus in on, okay, yes, I can identify these elements, but then how do I write about it when I do find them? And I think that's going to be the valuable part of our conversation we'll have after you read this sample, okay? So read the sample. Let's come back at 8:05, ready to discuss. Okay. All right. Okay, my friends, if everybody could start coming back. All right. I tried to warn you. This particular sample is different than what we are writing for our assignment, in that it was taking two separate articles and comparing them, ultimately trying to decide which of the two articles was most persuasive and why, and how they would defend which article was most persuasive was through the use of the argumentation strategies. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time here to point out a couple things before you choose your article and begin the process for your reader response. And so what I highlighted here on my screen, I just want to talk about it for a little bit, okay? And so what you're going to be doing in this paper is first identifying, when you are reading, which of the argumentation strategies you can find, right? So as I'm reading my article, I'm either highlighting things, maybe I'm highlighting all of the ethos in yellow, highlighting all the pathos in pink, all the logos in an orange, right? But then the important thing when I go to write about it, okay, it's one thing to identify it. It's a whole nother thing then to write about it in your reader response. And so when you're writing about it in your reader response, you're going to give me specific examples of where you see ethos, pathos logos coming out, but you also have to tell me why you think the writer is using that particular example of ethos, pathos logos, right? What is the overall impact of that particular example being used? So the part I highlighted here that I'm going to read, I feel like does just that. It says, Lee is able to strengthen their argument as well as the overall structure of the article through the use of Aristotle's methods. Great topic sentence. Tells me that this author has used Aristotle. It's made the argument more persuasive. Good. Now it says Lee uses ethos throughout the article. She does this to establish credibility. Okay, well, we need a semicolon here, but yes, ethos, that's what ethos does, right? The definition of ethos is that it establishes credibility. Now, here's what I like though, is it tells me specific examples of ethos from the article. She does this through citing different reliable sources, such as, and then these are the exact sources that she used: American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, researchers at the University of California and Iowa State, right? Those are examples of the author using ethos, okay, specific examples from the text. Then it moves to this. The author also, okay, so we have a transition, also uses pathos in order to appeal to parents' emotions. Okay, so they've established that parents, okay, are the intended audience for this particular text. Now, here's what I like. Okay, they don't just say they use pathos and move on to something else. One example of this is when Lee says, quote, since finding good quality time can be difficult for many families, allowing technology to cut into those moments is something parents may want to prevent as much as possible. Okay, here, this is effective at appealing to the emotions of the target audience, parents. Okay, so again, telling me what this particular, tell me what emotion it pulls out, right? Does it pull out the emotion of making parents feel sad, making parents feel happy, making parents feel a sense of nostalgia? Okay, it says here then, comes back to this is specific, this one moves to logos, okay? The author also, again, transition, utilizes logos by using evidence in order to support the claims. This is specifically seen when the author states that, quote, those who went 5 days without screen time were significantly better at reading human emotions than kids with regular access to technology. And I love their explanations. They give me the quote and then they said, this supports the author's claim about how social awareness is greater in children if they use less screen time. Okay, so again, the first part is simply reading the article and being to pick out the ethos, pathos logos. The next part then is translating it into written format and saying, okay, this author uses this, here's an example of it, and here's why it matters. Okay, that's an important structure to follow as you are going through and analyzing your chosen or your selected article. Okay, and so if you need it, come back to that sample. I think it does some really good things, even though I admit it's very different than what we're doing, right? They took two separate articles, compared them, ultimately deciding which one is stronger. For your reader response, you are simply analyzing one article. So you're going to summarize that article, then you're going to analyze the argumentation strategies. Okay, to help you get started with this assignment, here is what we're going to take a look at. So just to help you get started with organization of this particular paper, because I think it can be a little bit tricky. It says, after reading and taking notes on your selected article, present a plan for the body paragraphs of your essay by filling out the chart below. Refer to the assignment sheet if you need to. But before you start planning, it might be helpful to consider some possibilities for how you could organize this paper. The options below, they're not your only choices, but these are the most common that we see done successfully for this particular assignment. You can select the number of body paragraphs based on what you need to say about your article. So if you need more body paragraphs, keep going. But here are some basic structures that we have seen. Organization option 1 divides it into strengths and weaknesses. So that would mean you're starting with your intro summary thesis in the first paragraph. Argumentation, strengths of article and support, argumentation, weaknesses. Now within here though, remember, you've got to talk about Aristotle, Rogers, Toulmin. You have to talk about at least 2 of those. Okay. Or over here, I'm not going to lie, this is just my preferred. If I were writing this paper, I would choose option 2, but that does not mean you have to. It's just how my brain thinks. Again, it's going to start with the intro summary thesis, argumentation theory A, strengths and weaknesses. So maybe I'm going to do Aristotle first, and I'm going to say ethos and pathos are a huge strength. The weakness, though, of Aristotle's might be the logos. Maybe it's lacking the statistics and data. Then I'll go into argumentation theory B. I'm going to go into Toulmin, right? I'm going to say, oh, the strength of this with Toulmin is the definite claim and support that they use. Whereas the weakness might be the rebuttal. Maybe they didn't even acknowledge that there was another side to this particular argument. So maybe that's what I'm going to focus on. Then my conclusion. Again, this one I think sets you up because it reminds you that you have to have 2 argumentation strategies, whereas organization option 1 doesn't really do that, even though you're still expected to do that, if that makes sense. Organization option 3 I've seen done very well lots of times. It's more summary based, and so it usually works best if you have longer articles if you do this. So what it would look like: intro and thesis, where you're introing perhaps just more about the topic as opposed to giving summary, because then in your body paragraph, you're going to go, okay, well, here's a summary of the first third of the article with my evaluation. Okay, well, here's in the first third of this article, we see Rogerian and a little Toulmin, right? Then you're going to say, okay, well, here's a summary of the second section. We see pathos coming out. Or, then the summary of the third part, well, we see more logos coming out in that part. And so that part would be summary, evaluation of argumentation, a little more summary, evaluation of argumentation. Okay. And the next one, theory connections. This one starts like the option 1 and 2, intro, summary, thesis, category of critique plus support. So for example, how well does the text consider audience according to Aristotle and Rogers? Category of critique plus support, how well does the text present and respond to counter arguments? I don't see a lot of organization option 4. I see more of these other 3, but you are certainly welcome to choose whichever one you want. Then when you come down below, and you can simply write this on a sheet of notebook paper, or if you want to go file, make a copy, then you can type in this document if you prefer to type. But I feel like this outline structure here will set you up for success on this particular paper. The first thing it asks you to do in this top box up here, summary of article. And I just put here, remember, your opinion should not be included in the summary. Again, use signal phrases and transitions throughout to convey all the main ideas and to indicate that we are summarizing, that these are not your thoughts or ideas, that these thoughts and ideas belong to the author. Then here in this box, I want you to think about, what will your thesis statement be? Okay, it's a single sentence. We're going to try to include title and author, unless you included that in the first sentence, and a statement of how effectively you think the author persuades and the main reasons for that response. That sample essay that we went through, a solid thesis statement. So if you go back and take a look at that, that will kind of help you preview. Then I put, what will the topic sentence of your first body paragraph argue? Right? And if you go back to that sample, it was like the author effectively uses Aristotle's methods of argumentation. That was their topic sentence. Then in the next box, what supporting details from the text will you use in your first body paragraph? What argumentation terminology will you apply? What explanations will you offer? Right, this is where you're going to give us some quotes. You're going to say, okay, this quote is an example of pathos, and here's why they're using pathos. This quote is an example of ethos, and here's why they're using ethos. Okay. Then you're going to go into your topic sentence of your next body paragraph. What are you going to talk about in this paragraph? Maybe you're going to move to Toulmin's methods. Okay, and what are you going to fill in as far as direct quotes over here? And how are you going to explain why those things are being used? And I put here, add rows for additional body paragraphs. I just didn't add that many. If you want to, you certainly can, so that you make sure you meet the page minimum. But I feel like this gives you a solid start on what to start thinking about as far as how to structure your particular essay. Whew, I've covered a lot of information there. So I'm going to come back and kind of do a little recap here. Okay. So first and foremost, there's a lot of steps to this process. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose your text. Okay, so let's break it down into manageable steps. You're going to choose one of these three things to read. As you are reading it, excuse me, you're going to be looking for Aristotle, Rogers, and Toulmin. Okay, so be thinking about that as I'm reading. Okay, what examples of Aristotle am I seeing? What examples of Toulmin, of Rogers, right? That way you have a plan. You've already got things highlighted that you can use when you get to the outline part. So once I've read and annotated my selected text, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to complete the outline. My computer is being weird, sorry. Okay, then I'm going to come here and I'm going to complete the outline. And you're going to submit the outline on Canvas. Okay, so then once you've submitted the outline, and all you have to do here, if you would just highlight which one of these organizational patterns you want to do, highlight it here, and then you can, give me a color highlight, whatever you want to do, just so I know which of these organizational structures you're planning on using, right? You're going to scroll down and fill out the bottom, which tells me you have a plan. Here you've got your summary. Here you've got your two methods of argumentation you're planning on using. Okay, then once you have your outline submitted, then you're ready to go ahead and start typing your rough draft. Okay, the final paper needs to be 3 full pages minimum, 4 pages max. And then once you have a rough draft, I strongly encourage you to visit the writing lab so you can get feedback on your rough draft to make final revisions. And you're going to submit a final draft by this Sunday at 11:59 p.m. If for some reason you don't think you're going to be able to meet that deadline, just shoot me a quick email, let me know what's going on, and we can work through that individually. Okay. Whew, I was trying to get you out much earlier tonight than what I'm getting you out, but it is about 8:20, so that's going to give you a little bit of time to dig in here, not a whole lot. So hopefully you can get your article selected. Hopefully you can get it read, and then make sure you plan out enough time to do the outline, then enough time to turn the outline into a rough draft and the rough draft into a final draft before Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Okay. All right. So I'm going to let you go, let you dig into your text. If you have questions, go ahead and stay on. Otherwise, my friends, have a fantastic evening, and I will see you back here same time, same place next week.
I don't know if I'll be able to make the deadline. I work this Saturday and this Sunday, and tomorrow I am booked till 4 p.m. and I'm usually in the writing lab every single day to be able to complete it because I struggle with time management. I'm working on it, but I tend to focus easier when I'm in the writing lab, and so I don't know how far I'll get within 2 days. I know if I have I know I could submit it on Monday night if I had that one extra day. I just have an exam tomorrow, so I know I have to focus on that, and then I have predetermined things to do on tomorrow as well.
Yeah, Annika, as long as you have it submitted by next Tuesday, totally fine. So take through Tuesday if you need it. I have homecoming this weekend. At least I'm at West, so I'm going to be busy all weekend, so I probably won't get any grading done.
Okay.
So as long as you have it in by next Tuesday, even Wednesday, totally fine.
Yeah, I'm currently in the process of getting tested for test anxiety. I know it sounds counterintuitive to get tested for test anxiety, but, yeah, I have yeah, my meteorology class is going interestingly. I'll say that.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to focus on one step at a time. And I know like I don't mean to do this 2 weeks in a row because last paper, but I mean,
You're
I'm
fine.
trying.
Listen, you're totally fine. I'm not gonna get them all graded in one night, so totally fine.
Okay.
Take till Wednesday if you need it. Okay, deep
Okay.
breath, one step at a time, one thing at a time.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Take care.
You as well.
Mm-hmm.
Bye bye.